Good evening, Greater Metro West. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm Heather Beer, chair of tonight's Positive Parenting Program and a member of Federation's Young Family Programming Committee. A big thank you to the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West and to the Ted and Maxine Family Fund for the gift of PJ Library. We all know how much we love our books. Through virtual programming like this, family programs, hands-on volunteering, advocacy, and so much more, Federation, Nextdoor, and PJ Library work together to help families make connections and strive, all while building a strong Jewish community. But tonight, it's about us, the parents, and how we can learn to help our children navigate the world positively to become the self-confident superheroes we know they all are. I'm excited to introduce Lynn T. Ox, Chief Program Officer at Ohio's Meyerson Academy and the co-founder of the strength-based educational program, Thriving Learning Communities, as well as Lisa Dillon, Thriving Learning Communities program facilitator and social emotional learning champion. Joining them tonight is Marianne McCrone, Clinical Director of Child and Adolescent Services and the Rachel Coalition at the Jewish Family Services of Metro West. Now, I know we're all eager to get started, so here you go, Lynn.
Thanks, Heather. So nice to be with you all. Sounds like you've had some crazy weather tonight. We're very grateful to have Marianne join us as well, and she'll be joining us in the chat. Just a couple of specifics as we get started here. We encourage you to be engaged as you can be. So if you can show us your beautiful faces on your cameras, that's great. We also understand if you're cooking dinner or putting kids to bed, that may not be possible, but we'd love to see you if you can do that. And we're also going to be in the chat quite a bit and encourage you to get your devices out, whether you're on your phone or you're on a laptop or tablet. Please join us in the chat. We want this to be an engaging evening for each one of you tonight. So say hello in the chat. I'm looking, Lisa. We got anybody yet?
We have a few coming in, but we know you're on multiple devices, so we'd love to just say hi. Here they come. They're ready, Lynn.
All right, it's Lauren. We've got one. So welcome. We're so excited to be with you and bringing this message to you tonight. It sounds like you've had a crazy day out there weather-wise. Here in Ohio, we're from Meyerson Academy, as Heather said, and it is a place that's all about creating great places to live and work. By activating our strengths, both as individuals and within organizations. We've been around for over 29 years, the Academy has, and we serve over 500,000 kids every year in about 150 schools, as well as work with about 50 plus organizations. So just a little bit more about Meyerson Academy. A lot of times people say, is that a school? No, it's a nonprofit. We could have just brought up a picture of the weather, I think, here, Lisa, but it looks like we'll take a little bit longer view and take a look at the world we have been in, you all. It has been, if we just pause for a moment, I heard some banter as we were coming in today about COVID and kids home and all kinds of crazy situations. And, we know it's been a whirlwind of the last year and a half with challenges, including uncertainty, division in the country, really a sense of hopelessness. And we want to acknowledge that always as we bring about this conversation today. And we want to say to you that there is hope, and we share the hope that you hold for your children and that they will go into a world that is a better place. And how do we make it a better place? And we believe, like you, it starts in our homes and really and truly with us. And so how can we raise confident, resilient children in a world that can sometimes feel pretty darn crazy? So we want to kick off tonight, and this is why we said find that chat if you can. What does it mean to cultivate a confident child? Heather did a great job of introducing tonight, and we selected this title because we had a sense of what this might mean. But we'd love to hear from you. Just a few people in the chat. If you would like to tell us a little bit about what that means to you. So how would you describe a confident child? What do you want for your child? Behavior, attitude, values. Let's give it a minute and see if we can get some reactions, Lisa, in the chat. What does a confident child look like to you?
I think we're thinking over here. Rachel says someone who's confident in how they feel, believes in themselves. Lauren says tries new things. Totally agree. Asks questions from Margot. Good listening and can speak up about feelings, kind, empathetic, and happy.
Oh, wow. Mm,
I want to bottle all this up and
I
make sure all
know.
my kids can do all of these things, not afraid to stand up for themselves and others,
Ooh, lovely.
able to tolerate frustration, voice to express and communicate and handle tough situations, work through challenges. I'm still working on these as an adult, Lynn.
What a great list. Well, keep them coming. This is a great list, and I'm going to put up a few more words, but you all have captured so many positive emotions. Look at that good sense of humor, too. I love it. Proactive. There's a few words on the screen here that we gravitate towards, but the idea is that all of these words, love, awe, joy, hope, gratitude, curiosity, they're about positive emotion. And we know from the field of positive psychology that when we experience positive emotions, when we're in that emotional state, amazing things happen. We want to just set that framework for you tonight because it is hard sometimes to stay in that positive place with our children. The science of character strengths, which we're going to dig into tonight, indicates that by knowing your strengths, using your strengths daily, applying your strengths, and spotting strengths, seeing strengths in others, helps us sustain positive emotion. Now, you do not need to raise your hand, but my guess is from the conversation we had earlier, it's been a challenging day, Lisa, for some of the folks on the screen to maintain positive emotion. So how can our strengths help? Maybe we'll look at that a little bit later here. So let's talk about positive emotion. I want to cite just a little bit of research we absolutely love from Barbara Fredrickson's lab, her broaden and build theory of positive emotions, and that positive emotions, and this is really linked to brain research as well, when we're in a positive state, and you just kind of know this about your children when they wake up or when they come home and they're not they're in a negative state, it's a very different experience, right, than a positive state. And we know when that happens, our thinking begins to broaden and build, and we create more ideas and are really just more generative. And as we broaden our thinking, we begin to build and make connections. The brain is a connector. And so we begin to build up our resilience and our resources. And ultimately, it really transforms us. And so the research shows and our experience tells us that when our children are in a positive state, when we're in a positive state with one another, we're just our best self. And so how can we stay in a positive state? That might be the challenge. I'm going to suggest a couple things tonight to take a look at. And I just want to set some guiding questions for us. We're going to first talk about how we can shift our perspective, because I'm not sure if you've had this experience, but I've had it as a parent and grandparent, that if I'm not in a positive state, seems like the rest of the family might follow suit. So think about that and how important it is in our families that we can stay in a positive state. And then we're going to talk about our own strengths, because there's two parts of the parenting equation, right? There's our kiddos and there's us. So how can we recognize our own strengths and use those in strength-based parenting? And of course, we're going to shift to your children and think about their strengths and how you can activate those strengths to help them navigate the world. In other words, how can they apply their strengths? Now, we're not suggesting this is easy. So Lisa and I are going to do some modeling here of a typical day with my grandchildren. I was just with these two grandchildren, Lisa, last weekend, and I know you've got 3 at home. So let's talk about our kids. So what we'd like for you to do is join us right now. And you don't need to do this in the chat. Just grab something to write with, or if you're on a keyboard, you want to bring up a note. What 2 words would you use to describe your child, grandchild, a niece or nephew? Get someone in mind. You don't have to do all your kids if you have multiples, but just grab one and think of 2 words to describe them. Of course, we went with 2, so you can follow our example as well. Let's give you a moment to think. 2 words to describe. Jot those down, and I'm going to begin sharing. So this is my, this young lady lived with me in her 13th year. That's on the left, that's Sydney. And I could describe her as very emotional and artistic. She's now 17, a little bit older, but I definitely think she's my emotional kiddo and very artsy. And then Karis Lynn is very sensitive and likes to debate. Do you have any kiddos that like to debate? They like to argue a bit. Lisa, now you have 3, but of course we have to talk about the twins. What have you got for us?
Oh, yes. And Lynn, we already talked about this, the difference between being a grandparent and being a parent.
True.
Mine are a little edgier, I think. And we have Connor on the left, who is the brother of the boy-girl set of twins. And he's the silly, creative one, but he creates a tornado wherever he goes, for sure. And then Charlie, aka my mini me, is my karma. The universe gave her to me specifically for me. She is a little stubborn and definitely opinionated. I, we love them, but we also know them well.
Yeah. Okay. Did everybody get their words written down? You need to hold on to those because we're going to come back to them at the end. So jot down your words. And if you're in motion parenting right now, just capture them in your brain. Try to. I know it's been a crazy day, probably. So with that, let's talk about parenting itself. If we had rain coming down, this might be the day you had today. This is a pretty rough picture in front of us, and we're going to encourage you to jump into the chat again and type some words that would describe this mountain. Parenting can feel a little rocky like this at times. Would you agree? So shout it out in the chat. What do you see in this picture? Rough terrain, dark, rough. That's great. What else, everyone? Uneven. Some days, as a parent, it feels this way.
Mm-hmm. Rocky
Rocky.
Mountain. Anger. Ooh. Bumpy with highs and lows. Heavy
Ooh.
and challenging. Mysterious reflection. Oh, Emily, I like that one. Reflection. Magnificent. Monotone.
Ooh, good
Such
words.
creative answers. I love it.
This is a highly creative group. We just needed that wait time, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to try a little experiment now. And in this experiment, I would like for you to take your left ear and place it on your left shoulder. I was like, is it this way or this way? And now take a look at that picture. We're going to see if we can get a little shift in perspective. Do you see something different when you tip? If you see something different, type it in the chat if you want to. You can help each other out. Give you a second, and then we're going to show you a picture of what you might see when you do that tilt. Okay, do you see something? Yeah, parent and child, that's right. That simple shift really brings about a shift in perspective. And we're going to talk about shifting our perspective and using the strengths language to do that. Now, I will say, sounds simple, but there is something called the negativity bias that makes this a little tricky. So if any of you have psychology background, you'll know this term. We're hardwired to remember problems, to remember the negative things that happen to us. Rick Hanson, one of our great researchers in this field, I love his comparison because he says that when we get a positive emotion, it's very much like Teflon, it just flies. And unfortunately, the negative things that happen to us, the negative events are like Velcro, they stick. So how, if this is just the way we are as human beings, how do we overcome the negativity bias? And I think that if anyone ponders and thinks about their day and the comments and the feelings, even maybe coming in tonight that you had, we got to kind of fight those negative emotions. So one of the ways we're going to suggest that you do that is through character strengths. Character strengths give us a common language to shift our focus from what is wrong to what is strong. Now, the reason why we say a common language is this. If we asked you to just describe what's great about yourself, what are your strengths? Sometimes it's challenging. Of course, Lisa and I have those in our windows if anybody has us on screen. So we're displaying some of our top strengths, but it's because we do this work every day, right? And I would venture to say before I started doing this work, I wouldn't have been able to name all my strengths either. So it's really important to think about the fact that if we want to use that language to shift our thinking to the positive and our behaviors, we have to have a common language. And that's the trick. In our families and in our schools, do we have a language to describe what's right in each of us? So we're going to introduce to you, if you have not been introduced before, the VIA character strengths. There's our stats. Forgot to bring up our half of us are in the dark, Lisa. So again, how can we do this? So Lisa, if you wouldn't mind, let's put here coming up, we're going to put a chart in the chat. Now, you may have received this in your mailing. I saw Andrea queuing me. She had hers, got hers out. Hopefully you saw your advance email that had the character strengths chart in it. And I will say this is the chart we use with kindergarten through pre-K through about 4th or 5th grade. You'll see it a little bit later in the deck. We have a grade chart we use with older students, but for you all, we're just going to use a little kid chart tonight. And we're going to talk about the science behind these strengths. We're excited to say that the 24 character strengths have been classified into virtue categories, and that's what you see on the screen. They were researched in over 17 years ago. Dr. Marty Seligman, now considered the father of positive psychology, started on this work with Dr. Chris Peterson. They went around the world studying religions, culture, great works of art and literature. 55 scientists, 3 years later, they came up with a way to describe what is right in each of us, what is strong. And it has stood the test of time with thousands of research studies done every year across the globe. I think what's fascinating about the work is that no matter how much time goes by, these strengths resonate with everyone. And to be honest, 350 people complete the assessment every hour of every day. And I was just talking to someone from VIA this morning, and he verified that fact. And if you look at the concentration there, the strengths fit into these categories, and for many ways they represent the whole person, do they not? Strengths of the spirit, the transcendent strengths, strengths of courage where we can address challenges, strengths of community, building community, strengths that we exhibit with others in relationship, strengths of temperance that help us be balanced and manage ourselves, and then the head strengths, right? The wisdom strengths. So let's take a look at those 24. Hopefully you've had a chance to bring up the chart. They're universally valued. As I said, they're present in each of us. And just a reminder that we have all 24 and your children have all 24. This is an asset-based approach. Some days you may not see self-control, but I want to guarantee you your child has a self-control strength. It's not always the easiest for us to exhibit, but it is there. We have all 24. And so we want to focus on a strength-based approach. It isn't about what you do. It is about who you are at your core. These strengths can be used to motivate you, increase your engagement and enjoyment in life, and hence improve your well-being. You'll be able to thrive and you'll see better engagement, learning, and performance. So let's get everybody involved, Lisa. It's time. Where's Frankie? Frankie, it's time for a poll. We're going to ask you a very simple question. I promise this is an easy entry in. So if you can get to your keys or your phone, let's see if you would rather use creativity or judgment or humor when making a new recipe. And you can go ahead and launch. Let's see what we got, Lisa. Let's get you comfortable with the strengths.
I think as folks are answering, Lynn, for me, I usually start with creativity at the beginning of a recipe, but it usually ends with the need for humor. So it's like I have all these high hopes that I'm going to try something different or try to be like a Great British Bake Off, but it usually ends with some type of laughter because it did not go well. What about you, Lynn?
Oh, you know, I have to say humor because I am not a great cook, Lisa. So the whole experience is funny to me. I don't know. It looks like I'm in the minority here. Now, I was going to say I expect creativity to keep on rising with this group. They've been very creative in the chat. But yes, the whole cooking experience, I'm pretty sure my children would say was pretty humorous growing up with me. I think I might have the grandkids full, but I still laugh a lot when I cook because I never know what's going to happen.
Well, it looks like it was almost a tie. Creativity, about half of us thinking creativity for sure when we're making something new. And then we've got some high judgment people. They want to make sure they're doing it right. Maybe it's that first time using the judgment to follow the recipe and then the creativity after, once you feel like you've done it once.
Could be. Well, and one of the reasons we do this really is a method to our madness here, you all, is that it really is about looking at your top strengths. You each have your own concentration of strengths, your own combination as adults. They shift around a little bit, but we're going to show a slide in a little bit where you can go take your own VIA character strength assessment. Because what's interesting is for any given thing you do, you tend to apply the strengths that resonate at the top of your list, the top strengths, your middle strengths. You tend not to use your lesser. And that's okay because you're still going to get a good result. Well, I'm not sure about cooking for me, Lisa. I shouldn't have used that example, but hopefully you'll get a good result if you use your top strengths. So I'm going to have a lot of fun, even if my recipes don't turn out all that great. So we'll go ahead and close out that poll and take a look at some additional information on the background between the strengths. So a lot of people say to us, how do you know using these strengths makes a difference? So we just wanted to give you just another quick slide with some examples of studies. There are so many that I'm just going to hit a few that tend to be ones we look at a little bit more often. So we're going to look at some strengths combinations. Zest and hope. Now this, by the way, is a little bit different looking chart. Same 24 strengths. These are arranged by those virtue categories and have a little bit more of a middle schooler kind of definition. So if any of you on today have older students and want this chart too, we'll be glad to send that through PJ Library, right? Yes. So hope and zest are found repeatedly to strength, are strongly linked to happiness. And this has been found in 2004 on through current studies. So again, hope and zest, not a surprise there, I don't think, Lisa. Gratitude, so well researched, so many benefits. It's linked to positive emotion, optimism, life satisfaction, vitality, spirituality, less depression, and of course, less envy. So again, gratitude is a great strength to practice. Another one, perseverance. I will say we pull this one out a lot, but it is linked to academic achievement. There are other strengths that are as well. And then here's an interesting combo. Social intelligence, kindness, self-control, and perspective are related to a wide variety of results. So for those of you that have perspective in your top strengths, it leads to successful aging. That's a hot tip for us adults. Social intelligence, lower incidence of substance abuse in teens, lower levels of aggression, kindness, overall mental and physical health, longevity, self-control, and self-control, no surprise, lower levels of depression and anxiety. So again, there are hundreds of studies, and that just gives you a flavor of the kind of work being done to show the correlation of strengths to those overall mental health and well-being of all of us, our life satisfaction, really. And then some parenting research. We love Lee Waters, and we'll show her book at the end if you want to grab that reference in her Strength Switch book. And her researchers showed that strength-based parenting does something really important. It encourages your child to use their strengths more when they are coping with stress and adversity. Taking a strength-based approach is not about Pollyanna. It's not that it's going to take care of all the problems in the world and all the trouble your kids are going to have getting along with each other in the family and in the world. But it does help them cope, build resilience and confidence, that cultivating confidence. That's critical. So it's a buffering effect in many ways. It's a tool in your tool belt. And of course, we want those kiddos of ours to grow up to be confident and successful teenagers. Those teenagers feel like that mountain, Lisa. I'm just saying, because I've got, 3 at least, and another grandchild in the teenage years. And I will tell you that strength-based parenting should continue, right? So if you set the foundation now, you're going to see big payoff as teens if you continue to use this approach. Because with this approach, you're going to see greater life satisfaction of your child. And so I think it's just nice to see that there is a long-term payoff. Now let's circle back to you. Let's get you involved. So prepare yourselves, you all. We're going to hopefully bring you into a breakout room. But before we do that, take a look at that strengths chart. Think about all the strengths we've been talking about and kind of think to yourself, what is a strength that I think I use a lot that best represents you? Now, you're going to know that because it's kind of essential to you, and it's something you use probably without even thinking. And you can see some of our strengths on display there. Lisa, what's one of your top strengths that you think is just essential?
I think my social intelligence. I think the days when I'm kind of on my own and I'm working by myself, I'll take one. But if I'm not actively like relating to someone and engaging with someone, I actually find myself just less satisfied with what I'm doing. So being back in schools has really helped because that social intelligence has been able to flourish.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of think about that. And then when we're going to take you one step further in a breakout room in just a moment. We're going to go into breakout rooms. We really encourage you to, for each other's sake, unmute yourself when you're in the breakout room so you can talk, and don't worry about what's on your video. Everyone's going to understand, but if you can see each other, it really helps the conversation. And in your breakout room, we're going to ask you to talk to everyone in the room. Everyone take a few minutes to just share a way you've used a strength in the past week. Now, I will tell you this session is only 1 hour. So if everyone will just take a little bit less than a minute to share a way you've used a strength, and we'll go ahead and go into breakout rooms as our wonderful facilitators. I'm looking for Shay to give me the high sign. We'll put you in breakout rooms and we'll see you in about 5 minutes, but we're going to give you time to kind of talk with one another about how you used a strength. Let's have a positive conversation. I should have said, are we ready?
We're back, Lynn.
All right, that was great. I didn't want to leave my breakout room. It was so much fun.
Yes. Oh my goodness. We were talking about our different strengths and just it was hard to think of one that we had used and one that we were there were so many that we could pick from. So I definitely appreciate folks trying to get in and think about themselves, because it's easy to want to jump to thinking about our kiddos.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had a moment of pause for that same reason. Like, wow, we're not used to talking about ourselves and our strengths. This is a parenting session, but you'll see by the time we wrap up why that's so important. I just want to call attention to one last thing that's on this slide, which is the VIA character URL, sorry, www.viacharacter.org. You see that underneath the heart. If you are curious and you want to take your own character strength assessment, to take a look at your own unique combination of strengths, we highly encourage you to do this. And remember when you take it that you have all 24. So when you see that 24th strength, don't say, I don't have that strength. You do. It's just that it's at 24 and you might have to use a top strength to toe it up. This is very much about a very asset-based approach, but it does help you to kind of see yourself better. And you might have a partner, a spouse take it as well, because sometimes your combinations are interesting and you'll learn to appreciate what's right and best in each of you. So I want to just close out by saying this. No one in the entire world can do a better job of being you than you. And your unique combination of strengths is who you are. And if you play off those strengths, you will start a ripple effect. And that's really important to remember. This is not about who we want to be. It's really about using our strengths to be our best self. If you start a ripple by using your top strengths, those strengths that are essential and energizing to you, and then you start spotting in others, you're going to see a difference with your children and in your families and even in your work life. And so we just encourage you to do that. Now we're going to model for you. We're going to go back to those words we had before. We're going to encourage you to get your words back out and look at the character strengths chart and see if maybe you can find a character strength to describe that same thing. If you just kind of do that shift in perspective, tilt that head a little. So I'll take care of Lisa. I'll get us started. I'll turn it over to you. Sensitive, yes, but really and truly, this child is very high in social intelligence. And I even asked her this weekend, I said, I think you're high in social intelligence. Do people come to you for advice? And in her little second grader way said, yeah, kids come up to me on the playground all the time. They're always asking me about how to get along with so-and-so and so-and-so. She's just like, yeah, sensitive, but also high in social intelligence. Lisa, you can relate since that's one of your strengths, top strengths. And then she argues a lot, but I really think it comes from a place of she's always trying to make things be fair and equal and think about how people are treated. And so it's another way to look at it. How about your kiddos, Lisa?
Oh yes, I was chatting with Sharon in our breakout room, and she has 2 boys, and I have 2 boys and a girl, and I was thinking a lot about how silly, right? Like is zest, and we need that. We need him to dress up in a tutu. I might not always be ready for his zest. I think that's the biggest factor, but it is so important to just being joyful, and I appreciate it more when I can lean into it. His tornado comes from his creativity. creativity and his love of learning, because he's dumping everything out on the floor and then he's lining them up, or he's sorting them, or he's creating a new scene. So what to me looks like a mess is like his process of creating and learning. And then there's little Lisa, aka Charlie over there, who's stubborn and determined, and that is 100% her perseverance, and her opinions are just the way she shows her honesty. And honestly, honesty is one of my lower strengths, so I need to dial up a little Charlie from time to time.
Yeah, very good. So yes, if a child has different strengths than in their top than you do, you might see that display, just as Lisa shared. So with that, we've got another assignment for you. And this time we're going to ask you to think about a child or grandchild or niece or nephew in your life and what might be a couple of their top strengths. And it may not be the words you came up with opposite the reality, but it may very well be. And is there something surfacing for you that you really see in your child that you could really encourage? And then this breakout will be just a little bit shorter. Now that we've gotten kind of our feet wet, and hopefully our magic Zoom people are going to be ready for us, we're going to go back into a breakout and we're going to talk about, and let's do this one for just 5 minutes, guys. How has a child used a character strength in the past week? A child in your life, think about it. Now, this is going to take that positive lens. Think of a strength they've used and just share quickly with your colleagues in the room, and then we'll come back together again. Let's practice spotting strengths. Welcome back, everybody. We're so glad that we had some great conversations going. I know some of you probably got cut off a little short if you were in a bigger room, but we appreciate everything you're doing to participate actively in the conversation, and just encourage you to take that as a little homework assignment to do after the session, and to continue to look at the chart and think about how you can encourage those strengths, because we want to give you just a few more tips as we come back together again and continue with our learning this evening. And so thank you for sharing with everybody a little bit about your own children. You know, just one little caveat of warning here, and that is that we tend to want to see in our children and encourage in our kiddos the strengths we want to see, such as self-control or perseverance. So sometimes if it's a top strength for you, you really are looking for it in your child, and you're going to tend to encourage that strength. Might even be the strength of love. But you really want to consider, what are their top strengths? You know, what is it that they just exhibit and exude? And you really want to play off those strengths and then use those to toe up a lesser strength. The other thing we kind of got into in our room, and I don't know if you did, is just a little bit more about how to use our strengths. So very quickly, I want to touch on a concept called the golden mean. And we like to liken it to a plant. You know, imagine a plant where water is a strength. So if don't use enough water, it's an underuse of a strength, an underuse of that water, we know what happens. And then we can also overuse a strength. It's just a little bit too much. And so what we're trying to accomplish is the golden mean. And we were saying as adults, we've kind of learned to do this. And the golden mean, by definition, is this of a strength. It's using the right strength, picking the right strength, using it at the right time and in the right moment at the right level, right? We're not underusing, we're not overusing. And oftentimes this is about our work with each other. And so as we parent, this is important. I'll give you an example. I know, don't laugh, but I used to walk into my children's room because I'm high on zest, singing in the morning. And I decided over time this was not working with one of my kids who woke up really grumpy. So I had to dial down my zest and up my love a little bit, let them wake up. But I will tell you, on the way to school or on the way to the bus stop, zest was needed to get everybody moving and out the door. So again, this is important for your own parenting, but it's also a great coaching tip for you as you're working with your own kiddos. And so think about encouraging them to dial up or dial down. Are we all there? Okay. So let's test this new knowledge out and have a little fun. All the shows that you're going to see here, you may not know all of them, but for those of you that do know Blackish, you might have seen this statement before. So as you look, what strength is being overused or underused here? Call it out in the chat. We're going to practice. Let's test our skills at identifying over and underuse. What do we think?
I love this. I think maybe an overuse maybe an underuse of perseverance, right? So instead of reaching that goal, she's like, you need to lower the expectations, right? I cannot get where you want me to be, which feels like my everyday life as a parent. So maybe it's an underuse of perseverance, Lynn.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, humor. Yeah, Sandy, I don't know. Is that humor a bit of overuse, maybe? I was wondering about judgment. What do you think,
Ooh.
Lisa?
Oh, say
Could
more.
be playing there. I wonder, it might be underuse of judgment
Yeah.
if we're trying to
Julie,
model for our kids. Yeah, someone else agrees. All right, let's take on another one. Let's see if it'll get any easier. I would be pleased to RSVP as pending. What do we think? Overuse or underuse of what strength? See if anybody wants to play our game today, Lisa.
I love this show. That's all I really need to
Oh,
know.
Schitt's Creek humor. Any guesses? Oh, wait.
Truth?
Truthfulness. Yeah, a little bit of honesty there. Lots of honesty, appreciation of beauty and excellence. Oh, that does fit her very, very well.
Yes.
Underuse of zest. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love that. Sandy, I love that. She
Good.
didn't want to fully commit to the party. Yes, I
Yeah.
totally agree.
All right. Here's another one. We got to keep it rolling. What's happening with your face? Has anyone ever said that? I really hate to admit that one, Lisa.
I feel like I've
Woo!
I've said that and said it to myself as I was looking in the mirror. I definitely feel like this is both a little overuse of honesty, right? And Julie called out the social intelligence, right? Like I'm reading
Yeah.
your face, but what is happening? Maybe some curiosity in there too.
So with that, just a quick recap on the golden mean. Since I said it out loud, let's put it visually on there. Yes, overuse of honesty and even perspective. True. So again, our goal is to use the right strength in the right amount, and that is influenced by the time, the situation you're in, the relationship you're working within. So as we begin to already in our last 10 minutes here, Lisa, let's give them some last strategies here around strength-based parenting. So what are some ways we can use character strengths in parenting? We've been giving you a few, but here's one of our favorites. We talked a little bit about spotting because we asked you informally to just give a story of an example of your child using a strength. So we're going to give you a little framework here called name, explain, and appreciate. So name the strength. This is an easy way to do it. Explain how you saw the child or that person. You can do this at home with anyone in the family. Use that strength and then appreciate it. This part's really important because this is feedback for someone when you share how they use that strength and then how it made you feel. Critically important because it sticks that way. It really is that growth mindset work about positive feedback that has teeth, right? Because you want that behavior repeated again. So it's important to add that appreciate part. Again, here's an example. It's not as hard as it looks. So we thought we'd throw out an example for you. You use the strength of leadership when you woke up and moved your body right away. And it gave us more time to spend together eating breakfast. So again, just practice. And it just starts with strength spotting. Here's a few others for us. So let's look at these. Kindness. Lisa, I stuck this one on you this afternoon. I stuck Connor in here. But again, oftentimes we want to see our children show kindness to one another. And it's important that we think about what might be one of our children's top strengths that's surfacing and how could we reframe something that's happening to dial up that kindness. I don't know if anything comes to mind. This I won't put you on the spot. I just use one of your children's names freely.
Yeah, no, I think I know we're closing up here, but just this idea of like why after the tornado, right? Like we show kindness by picking up other people's things, right? Like if you made a mess, you use your kindness to clean up the mess, right? For other people, for me, for the family. So he is a kind, level. I was telling Sharon, he's a lovable, kind kid. He wants to snuggle. We can use our kindness not just to say nice words, but to do things to help the family.
Absolutely. So think of the strengths you want to encourage at home. A humorous one I know a lot of us use with our children, just lightening the mood with a joke. Humility can be important when you have something happening in terms of a child being frustrated. Think about if there's an overuse or underuse of a strength at play. And then leadership is an interesting one because oftentimes choice provides our children a way to show leadership. So if they're struggling because they want to lead, they want to be in charge, of the world and the family, choice is a great way to help them lead, but in a way that is manageable in the family. Hope, we often talk about that growth mindset, and again, there's so many strengths to call on here, but hope is a good example. And then curiosity is a great one. One of the best things you can do with curiosity is just ask those questions. I wonder, and what would happen, and all those great questions to just pause and think about how you can incorporate the strengths language into your parenting. As an example, we have, for instance, a family engagement flipbook in which we go into each strength. So you have the definition on your chart. That's the same one you see at the top there with the symbol. And get a couple of examples of what hope looks like. We're just going to exhibit that one to just take a deep dive. So, if you're having conversations around the dinner table or at breakfast, does your child have big dreams for their future? Are they talking about what they want to be when they grow up? Are they working on something at school that's really triggering their attention, really activating that hope strength? And are they facing challenges with confidence? That's about that cultivating that confident child. How can we call on those strengths so they feel a really strong sense of self? It is possible for children from 4th, 5th grade on to take the VIA character strength assessment. Our only warning is to remind them that they have all 24, because the younger the children take it, their strengths tend to shift every year. And so just, if you do it one time, do it again in a year. It is free. Don't get yourself tricked into the youth report. You don't have to have that. There is a free report, but you have to give permission for the child to take the assessment. But again, you want them to cultivate that strength. And so the options on the right are just different ways to do that. And that's just one example. And of course, we have to come back to our wonderful host and talk about PJ Library, because one of the easiest ways, like if this feels a little daunting, it has been a challenging weather day out there, the best way to start is just movies you're watching, shows you're watching, books you're reading, read books. And we just absolutely fell in love with the PJ Library. And I love the filter, because you can even filter by values, you all, but really, literature is a rich source of character strength spotting. So as you're reading together or listening to a child share about a book that they're reading, have them look for a strength that main character showed. It's just an easy way to kind of get that language down and practice. And I saw someone else say, put that chart somewhere you can see it. You can laminate it, stick it in a plastic sleeve, keep it around. And it's a great reference. You probably won't remember all 24 right off the bat, right, Lisa? Do you remember all 24? No, sometimes, right? And then last but not least, we do have lots of great resources at our online store. If you want to dig deeper too, you'll see the Strength Switch book in the top right corner. We encourage you to take a look at that. Lee Waters talks about strength-based parenting in a very common sense way. So if you're a person who is intrigued and you want to dig deeper, you can do that. If you're just looking for resources, we have lots of great parenting resources that are just fun to use at home and are great gifts this season. So again, just a few resources there. Now, of course, we wouldn't be who we are without challenging you here. So we would love, you're going to get a survey, I know, but just as a quick wrap up, think quietly to yourself, what is one new thing you learned today? And then we're going to ask you to make a commitment. Maybe it's to take the VIA, maybe it's to just spot strengths in the next 24 hours in your children. So try to make a commitment. And then in just a second, we're going to call on Heather and see what she can come up with there. Whenever you're ready, Heather, we'll give people a minute.
Right. So I know it's a little bit of a short time, but I hope everyone got a chance to think about what's something that they learned and the things that they're committed to. I want to thank Lynn, Lisa, and Marianne. Thank you so much for this great presentation. And from experience, I've definitely found these techniques to be beneficial. It helps me to slow down before reacting so I can better connect with my child and turn a stressful situation into an opportunity to build confidence. Like when we're about to leave for school, my 4-year-old Charlie takes out all of his art supplies. Instead of getting frustrated and feeling like he isn't listening, I can tell him how much I appreciate his creativity and say something like, I am so impressed with how creative you are. Right now, we need to get in the car, but I'm excited to see what you're imagining when we get home.
Oh, perfect. Great example, Heather. I just love it.
Everyone here is definitely exhibiting a love for learning. So a big thanks to you for joining us tonight. We hope to offer more parenting seminars and we'll be sending out a brief survey to help us plan for future events. Please look out for an email with a follow-up from tonight's presentation, plus information on how to access local parenting resources and support right here in Greater Metro West and Central New Jersey through Jewish Family Services. And stay tuned for these great upcoming events. The Shop Back Trunk Show on November 16th at Crestmont Country Club. Personally, I'm very excited for that one. And on December 2nd, a family Hanukkah celebration on Zoom with Grammy winner Joni Leeds. I want to also give a special thanks before we sign off to Andrea Bergman, the director of PJ Library and Community Outreach Coordinator. She's the one behind all these great books that we get. We wouldn't have had this wonderful presentation without her. Hope to see you all again soon and have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Great comments in that chat. I love those thoughts. Good night, everyone.
Thanks,
Night.
everybody. Stay dry. Stay dry.